There are more than 600, I think about, there's about 625 different kinds of carnivorous plants. They all use different techniques for capturing their prey. They have many devices. First of all, they have basic needs also. They need to grow in a wetland area. Now remember, wetlands do not always stay wet. They dry up occasionally. And these plants have adapted to that and can survive. Oddly enough, they need fire. They need to be burned because burning reduces the competition, it clears the ground of vegetation above them and allows them to get full sunlight, which is the second requirement. It has to be wet, it has to have full sun, it needs an acid soil. They all grow in an acid environment. So those are the basic needs. Consequently, the roadsides leading from this point in the park about 3 miles up the road, there are millions of carnivorous plants alongside the road on both sides. You just have to know where to look and get down on your hands and knees and crawl around and pull back the weeds and grasses, and ta-da, there they are. We have, in our swamp and then along the roadside, we have 21 species of carnivorous plants that grow here. 5 of those are pitcher plants. These are pitcher plants up here, tall and colorful plants that have some type of lure. And you notice this one has 2 colors, 3 colors, green and white and red. So that is, and the red lip around the edge is also extremely slippery, very slippery. Notice the ridge, excuse me. Notice the ridge along the front edge. This ridge secretes nectar. It's kind of like a strong fiber all the way down from the mouth up here, all the way down the front, and that's where it secretes nectar. Nectar is sweet, of course, and it is part of the lure that attracts the insects to the base of the plant, and they unknowingly follow the track. It's like the breadcrumbs in the forest. They follow the track all the way to the surface, and in their stumbling around on the lip up at the top, they slip off and fall into the pit. And at the bottom of the pit is a pool of water. And the water is just loaded with digestive enzymes. Digestive enzymes that begin, first of all, the organism drowns, then he begins to decay, not rotting away, but being digested away. And the purpose of this digestion is to get nitrogen. Nitrogen is very poor in acid soil. It converts the nitrates to nitrites. So these plants have to do all they can to get the nitrates. Nitrates is the form of nitrogen that all plants use, all plants. And nitrogen is one of the major components. Nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium are the 3 major components of most fertilizers. So once they get up here, if they slip down into the pit, and if they can, they'll try to get out. And as they come up, as they come up out of the pit, let's look at a different one. As they come up out of the pit, in this area down here are downward pointing hairs. Downward pointing hairs. They act like spines. and they offer resistance to anything trying to go through them. If they can manage to get through there, if they're large enough to crawl over them, the next area is wet, waxy. It's very, very waxy on the inside. Insects, remember, they have little claws, little hooks on their feet. That's how they climb. But it's waxy scales, and wax on wax is very slippery. So they continue to slide back to the bottom again. And they have to start over, and of course they're finally exhausted, and they begin to be digested and reach a point where they die, and they continue to be broken down until there's just an empty carcass of chitin. Chitin is the shell that most organisms are covered, most microorganisms, most insects are covered with. So if they're capable of getting through the hairs and the digestive enzymes and the waxy scales, then they come to the top. And they get to the top and they see the light. Hey, look at there. I see the light. Shine the light on me. And so here's the way out, he thinks. But no, the dark side is the way out. The dark side's the way out. So that's their demise again. They keep crawling up. If they get through the downward scales, the downward hairs, the waxy scales, and the deflection and deception of the windows. Latin-wise, in botanical, these are called fenestra. Fenestra, which is Latin for window, which is the two major companies in America, Pella and a couple of others. They manufacture, they call them fenestrations. Okay, let's see who else we have over here and what techniques they use. The pitcher plants are tubular. All of them have basically the same shape, and we have 5 kinds of pitcher plants. This little fellow over here is the same as this big fellow over here. This is Sarracenia minor. This is the hooded pitcher plant, the most common one we see along the roadside. And here's the flower. This is the flower. The flower is also pollinated by insects. And it's very stingy with its pollen. And it has a unique shape of its pistil. The pistil is where the insect goes in and transfers the pollen to the stigma for fertilization. This one is called golden trumpet, although it doesn't appear here as a dead plant because it's of course it's dead here, but the same principles apply. They have the same downward pointing hairs, waxy scales, deception at the top, and a slippery lip, all contributing to the feeding of what goes on down here. This one is called the parrot pitcher. The parrot pitcher lies flat on the ground, like so. It lies flat back on the ground, and its hood almost touches the ground. Sometimes they do. So it's probably a little more accessible for insects to get into because the mouth is right there waiting on them. I think that's about enough on pitcher plants. The next group are these little tiny fellas here. These little boys are called sundews because when you look at them in the sunlight, they look like they're covered with dew. They're actually covered with hairy leaves. The leaves have little red, there's a red eye in each hair, and that serves as part of the attraction. There's a red hair, and it's covered by a clear gelatinous material that looks like dew, hence the name Sundew, because it does glisten in the sunlight. And if you will go along the roadway up here and get down and look under the grass, you'll find just thousands of little sundews. And there are four species of sundews in our park, in the swamp. Let's see. Yeah. Here are two species. This is Drosera rotundifolia, and this is Drosera intermedia. Drosera intermedia. See, it stands up. It stands up off the ground like so, and it offers these beautiful red, glistening, dew-like leaves, attracting the insects. But when they light on the plant, they're there. It's very tenacious, very, very sticky. Even if you touch it with your finger, you can see the glue stretching between your finger. So its method of eating, its method of actually eating, it has to absorb the nutrients, so it has to make contact. So then the action of the plant is all the little hairs roll up like so. They roll in towards that insect so that no way he's going to get out. And then to make it even closer, the leaf begins to roll up this way. The leaf rolls up longitudinally, and it actually presses real tight on him to make contact for the absorption of the nitrates that it needs for its composition. Continuing with the carnivorous plants, the next species or type of carnivorous plant we have are called butterworts. Butterworts, because many of them have leaves that are kind of butter yellow, butterish yellow. And their leaves are also sticky. Sticky, but for a different reason. The leaf itself secretes a fat-like material. It's greasy in a way. If you touch the leaf and slide your fingers, you'll see that it's very slippery. It's very sticky to an insect, such that they will have trouble picking up their little feet to get away from the fatty material. Then the leaf senses this motion. The leaf senses the fact that something is disturbing my surface, and it begins to roll over, but it rolls longitudinally this way. It rolls from its outside edge of the leaves to the inner center of the leaf. And in doing so, it captures the organism, presses close, secretes digestive enzymes. At the proper time, when the nitrates appear from its dead carcass, then the plant begins to absorb the nutrients from that insect into its leaf surface, down to its root system, and preserves it. When it gets enough energy, it will produce a flower. When it has collected enough insect nutrients, then it will begin to flower. It will produce a bud at the bottom, and you see this one, there are 4 here. 4 stems came up, all of which created a flower, which is not carnivorous. It has nothing to do with digestion and absorption. The flowers are up here to create seeds. Seeds are for reproducing the type of plant. These are very, very common along the roadside. They are not readily visible. You really have to be careful, reach down and pull back the grass, and you'll see these little golden leaves lying flat on the ground. And our next type of carnivorous plant here is called a bladderwort. The reference to a bladder is because of the tiny little sac-like structures that appear on the leaves of the plant. They look almost like the little knots of leaves and twigs, but they're really tiny bladders. The little bladders, that are, and there's thousands of them on each plant, thousands of them, because they eat such tiny organisms. They don't eat insects. They eat tiny protozoans, crustaceans, the microscopic critters of the water in the swamp, which there are billions of them. They are so numerous. And so this type of plant has taken advantage of that population of organisms and has developed a sensitivity to the presence of them. Each little bladder has on top of it 2 little triggers, just like this. And if that organism, not a bug, if that organism touches either of those, there's a door right below it. There's a door here, and this door opens and sucks in a current of water. With it comes the protozoans, the diatoms, desmids, all of the little microscopic critters. They go into this cavity, and the door closes in 1/25th of a second. It's extremely fast, extremely fast. And when it closes, whatever is in there will be digested. It will secrete the motion of the organism. He'll still run around. I have even seen mosquito larvae that couldn't get in there at one time. So here's a mosquito cavity where his abdomen is sticking out, and the head's down inside the bladder being digested. and as it digests it, it pulls in more and more and more of the critter. We've seen that happen very commonly. So once it is digested, the organism, if it has any keratin on it that is indigestible, that bladder will die and fall off, and a new one will be produced right in the same place. So those are our unique characters of bladderwort. You got a good picture of those. Some of them will be 2, 3, 4, 5 feet long. And this whole mass of vegetation will be underwater. The only thing that sticks above the water are those flowers. These flowers right up here. And this one is called Utricularia inflation. It has special leaves here. These are special leaves that are inflated with air, gases of some type, and that floats to the surface, and it holds up the flower, just attracting any kind of insect that will come and pollinate. So that's its method of reproduction. Let's see. Oh, some of them, like this one, these down here, Utricularia, is a bladderwort, but it grows in mud. It does not grow in peat. It grows in mud. So these don't grow down in the water. These grow right at the edge of the water, so it's real soft, and its root system can make contact down here. It grows in the mud, but it's not a terrestrial plant. It is an aquatic, carnivorous plant, and we're just very grateful to have all that the good Lord has provided.